Well, the Florida legislature's 60-day regular session can go by many names, but here's the one it's earned.
It's time now for 60 days of stupid.
After all, only the Florida legislature could pass a crackdown on sex in public park toilets that busted the House sponsor soliciting sex in a public park toilet.
I wish this situation to no one.
We've covered the Florida man moments in state politics for years, from the Florida man who ran the Florida First Jobs Tour on a bus from Tennessee.
Oh, gosh.
To the Florida man who was clearly under the influence of something besides lobbyists.
I'm a state representative. Are you okay? You okay? You all right?
By the way, he climbed the ranks and is now one of the most powerful lawmakers on matters of health care. Well, the Florida legislature has done a lot of things they'd like us to forget in recent sessions, like locking the public out of a meeting on health care while proudly declaring the liberty to keep us in the dark.
Liberty! Liberty! Liberty!
And like voting and then voting again on the same bills in the name of absent lawmakers without their permission, and like leaving work early while claiming you didn't.
The business of the Senate concluded early today.
And that's Senator Elizabeth Benequisto, who once told us she was at an out-of-town barbecue because work let out early, while her colleague pushed her voting button, making it look as if she was still at work. She claims by mistake.
I can understand how they may say that it looks sloppy.
Well, if you're wondering who's responsible for the rules in that chamber, that would be Senator Elizabeth Benequisto, chair of the Senate Rules Committee.
The business of the Senate concluded early today.
But the trouble in Tallahassee goes far beyond the follies we've seen on the chamber floor. And each week we highlight the doozies that can play out behind the scenes. And one of the biggest has been burning working class families in Florida each year for the past decade.
Affordable housing is a human rights crisis facing our state, and Florida's renters have the highest rent burden in the nation.
Have you ever wondered why it can be so hard to find affordable homes across much of Florida? Well, we have a shortage of affordable homes, in part because the legislature is raiding the state's affordable housing fund.
Those dollars, unfortunately, are swept by the legislature, and swept significantly this year to be used for who knows what.
That fund is paid for by a dedicated real estate tax. When people buy property in Florida, they pay the tax that by law is set aside for affordable housing programs. It's supposed to help struggling families buy homes, help seniors and the disabled fix their homes, and it's supposed to give builders incentives to build homes that working class families can afford. But year after year, state lawmakers have been raiding billions from that fund to pay for their own pet projects. And House leaders are trying to do it again by raiding more than $240 million in this year's budget.
We know the politicians have other things to think about, too. It's not just housing.
It's campaign donations.
Right.
And it's the PAC money.
Exactly. So many things they have to worry about.
Re-election. They also have to worry about climbing the ranks of leadership, raising money, raising more money. So we'll make a deal now, with the lawmakers worried about so many things as they cut the final deals behind closed doors this week.
It's time now for 60 days of stupid.
If state lawmakers stop raiding the Affordable Housing Fund in the regular session, we'll stop calling it 60 Days of Stupid. Well, this man, William Forrester from Bradenton, is serving time he does not deserve because the same judge who sentenced him said he does not deserve it.
If they look up my charge, it says trafficking heroin.
When did you traffic heroin?
Never.
He had lung cancer, and doctors had to cut out his lung. Recovering in severe pain, William took more pain pills 1 month than his doctor prescribed, so he forged a prescription to carry him through until the next month. You had forged the prescription in July.
In July, yes, sir.
When did you get a legal prescription for that same medication?
It would have been August the next month. About 3 months later, they come and arrested me. After she had continued to fill the prescriptions after that.
Well, he committed a crime here for sure, but under Florida laws, he was sentenced to 15 years for trafficking narcotics, even though he never sold a single pill.
I took the pills. They were for me.
So you trafficked them to yourself?
I trafficked them to myself, if you want to call it that, yes, sir. I never thought of that, yes, sir.
Now, meet Mary Nowling. She's serving a 15-year sentence in a Hernando County prison for a bottle of pain pills. She was a homeless, disabled, mentally ill grandmother, now serving a 15-year sentence intended for drug cartels. So you don't have a cartel?
No, I'm not exactly sure what a cartel is.
A report from our own state government found most of Florida's oxy and hydrocodone trafficking convictions were for the equivalent of 1 or 2 prescriptions. And we, the taxpayers, are paying $58 a day to keep each one of them in prison, along with some others like Robert Woodall. He got in a fight and fired a shot toward the ground.
Pointed the gun at the ground and fired 2 shots. I figured that would stop them, and it did.
He got an automatic 20 years for assault with a firearm. Then, get this, he successfully appealed his conviction and a judge set him free.
He's got us going to church. He's got us, involved in the schools.
Then, after the state tossed out that law that required a minimum 20 years, and after he turned his life around, an appeals court sent him back to serve the full 20 years. So the court is compelling you to serve 9 more years on a law that's since been deemed unconstitutional that the governor has changed.
Correct.
Well, these cases and hundreds, if not thousands of others have something in common. They were all sentenced years ago on laws that state leaders from both parties now find excessive that they have since changed.
So for me, it's allowing judges to have the ability to go below the mandatory minimums when the case deserves it, when justice demands it.
But the changes do not apply to those who have already been sentenced.
I think it's wrong for the state to do that.
Now get this. State Senator Darrell Roussan sponsored an amendment to allow inmates convicted on those outdated laws to be resentenced. And voters passed that amendment last year and wrote it into the state constitution. But the judges say they cannot move forward on that because the legislature failed to implement the enabling guidelines, meaning state lawmakers are holding this up.
I've seen people that have robbed banks, child molesting. I mean, some horrible crimes that get under 15 years.
They're taking mothers away from their children. They might be poor mothers. That's still better than no mother. The legislators that make these laws, they don't realize what they're doing.
They're paying for it in prison, and we're paying for it to keep them in prison to the tune of $20 million a year and likely more on outdated laws the lawmakers themselves say are abusing justice and burning taxpayers. They might want to implement what voters have already passed before voters have a chance to take a pass on them. When you stroll down this South Florida beach, you may be struck by the manicured palms or the gentle waves, sailboats on the horizon, or the lady opening a large drum full of pot. That's Elvie Mashika. She smokes 10 joints a day. And guess where she gets it? Who is your dealer?
Uncle Sam is my supplier.
That's right. The same federal government that bans marijuana for medical or recreational use has sent Elvie more than 100,000 joints. The same federal government that claims marijuana has no acceptable medical use claims Elvie needs it for her glaucoma. The same federal government that arrests people for possessing pot sends Elvie and others lifetime supplies at taxpayers' expense. What more can you say?
The epitome of hypocrisy and stupidity.
And she's not alone. Just down the road, we met Irvin Rosenfeld in Fort Lauderdale. Again, the same federal government that bans pot and claims it has no acceptable medical use has sent him marijuana for his bone tumor condition since 1982. That's going all the way back to Ronald Reagan here and his campaign against pot while his administration gave out free pot.
Marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug in the United States.
Or what? This? That you send me 10 a day?
Elvie, Irvin, and others enrolled in a little-known program called the Compassionate Investigational New Drug Program to get marijuana for medical conditions for life and for free, courtesy of the United States government and its taxpayers. Well, President George H.W. Bush cut off enrollment to anyone else starting in 1992 as the feds continued to fight a war against marijuana while at the same time growing it on this heavily secured farm in Mississippi.
Says use marijuana cigarettes 10 times daily.
Yeah, while states like Florida allow marijuana for medical use and other states allow it for recreational use, the feds don't allow it for either. Except, of course, the list of people it grows it for at taxpayer expense. In short, state laws still contradict federal policy that contradicts federal policy, which, never mind that, means the feds could eventually shut down and arrest the businesses, the business owners, and people using marijuana in states that allow it if something doesn't change.
What would happen to the person who shipped this if it wasn't the federal government?
Let me put it this way, I won't even ship it to myself, and it's mine.
To that end, the U.S. House Judiciary Committee just approved a bill to decriminalize marijuana. It would allow the states to set their own rules, which, of course, they're already doing. And that would end decades of confusion and maddening contradictions in our government. But we don't know if the full Congress and president yet will go along with this because we don't know if they even know what's going on. And that may be one of the biggest problems with the government on drugs.
They're always surprised. They don't know that the government ever supplied anybody.
And they go, what? The federal government gives this out? We had no idea.
How long have you been on it? You smoke how many?
Deborah Washington Schultz's office. What? The federal government gives this out to patients? We had no idea.